Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Wednesday, February 19th, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. The weather in Riverside today will reach a pleasant high of 73.5 degrees, with a low of 52.2 degrees, making it a comfortable day for outdoor activities. Coming up, we'll examine the changes in legal support for migrant children in the American court system and explore the concerns small businesses are facing regarding potential funding challenges under the Trump administration. We'll also look at Illinois' proposed legislation to restrict phone use in schools and the reasoning behind this initiative. All this and more coming up on Alex's News. Stay tuned! We begin tonight with a developing story in immigration policy that's raising concerns among advocacy groups. With us now is our political correspondent, Ethan Parker. Ethan, I understand there's been a significant change in how unaccompanied migrant children receive legal support in immigration courts?
That's right, Grace. According to reporting from the Associated Press, the Trump administration has just halted all support for legal representation of unaccompanied children in immigration court. This is a decision that affects approximately 26,000 migrant children across the country.
Can you break down exactly what this means for these children?
Well, Grace, the Department of Justice has issued what's called a stop work order to the Acacia Center for Justice. As the Orange County Register reports, this organization manages a network of 85 different organizations that provide legal services to unaccompanied minors. We're talking about a $200 million contract that's now been suspended until further notice.
And what reason was given for this sudden halt?
Interestingly, the order cited causes outside of your control rather than any performance issues. But what's particularly concerning, according to the Butler Eagle, is that this comes at a time when legal representation rates for these children have already been declining. The Vera Institute of Justice shows representation rates dropped from 64% between 2005 to 2017 to about 56% by 2023.
Ethan, help our viewers understand. Don't these children automatically get legal representation?
Actually, Grace, that's a common misconception. The U.S. government doesn't provide legal representation for anyone in immigration court, even children's. Individuals must secure attorneys at their own expense, which is why organizations like the Acacia Center are so crucial. They run several vital programs, including the Legal Orientation Program and the Counsel for Children Initiative.
Is there any precedent for this kind of action?
Yes, there is. Earlier this year, the Justice Department briefly suspended support for other contracts that provided legal information to people facing deportation. However, after advocacy groups filed lawsuits, that funding was restored. The Center for Gender and Refugee Studies has called the expectation of children representing themselves in immigration court absurd and deeply unjust.
Thank you for that comprehensive report, Ethan. We'll be sure to keep our viewers updated as this story develops. In our second story this morning, we turn to a developing situation affecting small businesses across the nation. Joining us to discuss this critical issue is our business correspondent, Chloe Martinez. Chloe, what can you tell us about these funding concerns?
Grace, according to recent reporting from Cal Matters, we're seeing mounting anxiety in the small business sector due to President Trump's executive orders affecting federal funding. This is particularly concerning for California, which receives the largest share of small business administration loans in the country.
Can you break down exactly what's at stake here for our viewers?
Certainly. The LAist has identified several key programs at risk, including the State Small Business Credit Initiative, Community Development Financial Institutions, or CDFIs as they're known, SBA disaster loans, and microloans. What's particularly striking is that these programs serve as lifelines for many small businesses, especially in underserved communities.
I understand there's been some legal pushback to these measures?
Yes, that's right. According to court documents, 22 states and the District of Columbia have joined forces to challenge these orders. Their efforts have already resulted in temporary restraining orders from federal judges in both D.C. and Rhode Island. Additionally, Democracy Forward and various nonprofit organizations have filed their own separate lawsuit.
What's the immediate impact on California's business community?
The numbers are quite significant, Grace. Cal Matters reports that small businesses employ more than half of California's workforce. To break that down further, businesses with fewer than 20 employees account for 29% of jobs, while those with 20 to 100 employees represent another 30%.
And how is the administration responding to these concerns?
While the Trump administration maintains that small business funding won't be affected, we're already seeing impacts in other federal programs. The California Chamber of Commerce has noted particular concern about new directives reducing diversity goals in federal contracting, which could significantly affect disadvantaged businesses.
And what are legal experts saying about this situation?
They're pointing to an important historical precedent, Grace. The 1975 Supreme Court decision in Train v. City of New York suggests that presidents face significant legal challenges when trying to unilaterally withhold congressionally approved funds. This current situation in 2025 is being described as even more extensive than previous Trump-era executive orders.
Thank you, Chloe, for that comprehensive overview of this developing situation. Here are some other headlines. European Union envoys have approved a new round of sanctions against Russia, marking the third anniversary of its invasion of Ukraine. The measures target Russia's shadow fleet of ships, restrict 13 Russian banks, and suspend broadcasting licenses for 8 Russian media outlets. Nearly 50 Russian officials will face travel bans and asset freezes. In Vatican City, concerns are growing as Pope Francis, age 88, has been diagnosed with pneumonia in both lungs. The pontiff was hospitalized last Friday after his bronchitis worsened. While his condition is serious, Vatican officials report he remains stable and in good spirits, though several Vatican events have been canceled. A recent AP-NORC poll shows a slight decline in Americans' confidence in air travel safety following last month's tragic mid-air collision in Washington, D.C. The incident, involving American Airlines Flight 5342 and a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter, claimed 67 lives. The NTSB investigation is ongoing, with preliminary findings suggesting the helicopter may have been flying above its cleared altitude. Rapper A$AP Rocky has been found not guilty in his felony assault trial. The verdict came after just 3 hours of jury deliberation. Rocky, who faced up to 24 years in prison if convicted, celebrated the verdict by embracing his partner Rihanna, who attended the trial in support. And small businesses across the country are grappling with severe egg shortages and unprecedented price increases. The average price of a dozen grade A eggs has reached $4.95 in U.S. cities, more than double the price from August 2023. The shortage, primarily caused by an ongoing avian flu epidemic, has forced many stores to limit purchases and some businesses to consider raising their prices. And now for our third story of the morning. Illinois is taking bold steps to address a growing concern in our nation's classrooms. With us is our education correspondent Ethan Parker to discuss a proposed statewide ban on cell phones in schools. Ethan, what can you tell us about this initiative?
Thanks, Grace. Governor J.B. Pritzker has just announced his support for what he's calling screen-free schools, which would implement a comprehensive ban on cell phones in classrooms across Illinois. According to reporting from Click on Detroit, this would make Illinois one of the most prominent states to take such decisive action on this issue.
What's the timeline looking like for this implementation?
The legislation, which was just announced today, would require schools to have these policies in place by the 2026-2027 school year. That's about 18 months from now, but it's worth noting that, as Perplexity reports, at least 10 Illinois school districts have already jumped ahead with similar policies.
Are there any exceptions to this ban that parents should be aware of?
Yes, absolutely. The legislation includes several important exemptions. Students can still use their phones in emergency situations, for medical needs, and when specifically approved by teachers for educational purposes. The policy also makes accommodations for special education students and English language learners.
What's the evidence supporting this kind of ban?
That's a great question. According to a comprehensive study by Belland and Murphy that examined 91 schools in English cities, banning mobile phones led to a 6.41% improvement in test scores. To put that in perspective, it's equivalent to adding 5 extra school days to the year. Even more striking is that lower-achieving students saw a 14.23% improvement in their test scores.
How are schools that have already implemented similar policies faring?
The results have been quite positive. The Hinckley Big Rock School District, as reported by Hollis Brookline News Online, has seen increased student engagement and fewer discipline issues. The Edwardsville School District has become a strong advocate for the statewide ban, citing improvements in both student focus and mental health.
Is Illinois alone in this initiative?
Not at all. 8 states already have similar policies in place, and according to our sources, 15 more states, including Indiana, Minnesota, Ohio, Iowa, Kentucky, and Michigan, are currently considering comparable restrictions. This really seems to be part of a growing national movement to create more focused learning environments.
Thank you for that comprehensive report, Ethan. We'll certainly be following this story as it develops. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 3.5, Gemini Flash 2.0, the Perplexity API, and the Google Cloud Text-to-Speech API. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.